A lot of people who desperately want to seem smart say that something is only as good as its villain. Those people have clearly never seen Cars, since by that logic it would be the greatest thing created by human hands, but the sentiment is entirely wrong. A good villain can really help something stand out. I mean, they're usually the main driving force of conflict, so it makes sense. Nintendo, though, is interesting in this regard since most of its stories are very simple, and thus their characters are too. Despite that, somehow Nintendo, despite their very simple stories, have managed to give us some of the best villains in gaming. So I want to count down 10 of my favorites. It's a very simple idea. I don't need to explain this.
Showtime!
Ever realize that DJs are always shown as evil? I'm talking about Splatoon. Don't act surprised. DJ Octavia was like the game as a whole. Silly and simple at first glance, but kinda dark once you look into it. Once good friends with the Inklings, DJ Octavia was the leader of the Octolings and pretty friendly with Captain Cuttlefish. Rising Tide, however, caused them to fight over land, and this led to the Inklings winning, and Octavia retreating underground. It's kind of dark when you think about it, not only betrayed by her best friend, but it's shown throughout Splatoon and its sequel that the Octolings' lives are not very technical. They live in this very lowly place, their tech is pretty rudimentary compared to the Inklings, and you can even hear their whole society breaking down at the end of the boss fight. Speaking of which, unpopular opinion, I like the second fight more. Is it because Callie is very prominent in this fight and I'm a Callie simp? Absolutely.
Showtime!
What's with Nintendo's obsession with giving bosses floating hands? Knuckle Attack, Wham Bam Rock, 80% of Zelda bosses are everywhere. Making a Nintendo villain list wouldn't be complete without one, and hands down the best hands belong to Andross. Once a well-respected scientist, Lester's power and also the fact that he's a giant monkey man with a brain the size of a planet leads him to be evil. He kills James McCloud, Fox's dad, and he just kind of hangs out and does nothing after that. When you rule the galaxy, there's really not much else you can do besides sit around, make millions of different versions of yourself. I don't know, make a YouTube channel. Not speaking from experience. About the different versions of himself though, Andross appears in different design in basically every appearance he gets. In the original, he's just Vega's mask. In 64, he's an extremely rubbery monkey head and also a brain sometimes. And in Adventures, he's this giant advanced floating monkey head person thing. No matter what happens in the live ad system, you can guarantee that Andross will be there for some monkey business. I was going to do a lot of monkey puns on this segment, but I realized I don't hate my fan base.
Showtime!
Usually with these types of videos, I'm talking about characters I like. That's, top 10 favorite, whatever. But for this one, I feel like I need to include the most objectively evil, despicable character Nintendo has ever made. The problem with that, though, is that it's this annoying fricker. I hate Porky Minch so much. If you played Earthbound Mother 3, you probably feel the same. For the majority of Earthbound, Porky is annoying and overall useless. He talks a big game, but when he briefly joins your party, he does nothing to help. He'll even use Ness as a shield. That is until he pops up in the final battle, working alongside Gygus. Heck, arguably he's the mastermind there. And suddenly, now he's capable of doing major damage. Just adds salt to the wound. However, after Gygus' death, Porky just kind of fricks off. That is until Mother 3. Oh boy. In Earthbound, he was an annoying presence, but that was really it. In Mother 3, he runs an entire army, takes over Nowhere Island, creates a ton of hybrid animals, including the sentient and malevolent Drago, who then of course goes on to kill Hinawa, meaning Porky is technically responsible for her death, kidnapped, brainwashed, and is heavily implied to have tortured Klaus, and along with planning on using him as a weapon, and also having summoned the Dark Dragon to kill everything on Earth, except for Porky, because he's immortal. Listen, I may despise Ias Frick's guts, but I have to admit, they really did make a great antagonist here. They were able to make this annoying character into an absolutely despicable yet still childish villain, and I hate to say it, but that's pretty respectable. That's all, folks.
Showtime!
Pokemon's got a lot of bad guys. They introduced like 3 every game. Team Rocket is obviously the most well-known one, but most people only know them from anime, which they're hilarious in, but they're boring in game. When it comes to who to pick here, I had to choose between 2 options. A deep villain who's completely separated from all reality, whose complete emotional depression overcomes him, or me. Between those options, I went with the right choice. Cyrus is the main villain of Pokemon Generation 4, and he's nonetheless, it's your boy Guzma, baby! Guzma is someone who desperately wants to be taken seriously, but just isn't. He's an over-the-top, yet still very laid-back thug who just happens to run a criminal organization, which is as big of a threat as he is. As in, not. However, he views them all as his family. Guzman pretty much immediately became a fan favorite, and it's not hard to see why. Is he really evil? Not really. What he does make every second he's in counts. But his backstory is also pretty well done. It's implied that he wanted to become a trial captain and was actually a really good trainer, but was turned down in the end. So of course, after getting his first time denied, he immediately makes the game. Relatable! King Skull is just made of all the other losers and failures in Alola. So again, Guzma sees him as his family. I'm just saying, Game Freak, if you give us a Guzma game, we'll all be happy. Do it for your boy. Showtime! What is there to say about Hades? He's one of the funniest and most evil Nintendo villains out there. This is a dude who manipulated all of humanity into a war, was behind the entire first game, and even killed his second in command, all just because he's a massive troll and just wanted to be chaotic. Yes, he's nothing like the myth, but he's funny, so it's fine. It worked with Disney, so not here. Also, please, somehow, Disney and Nintendo, find some way to make a crossover between these two. The only reason he's lower on the list is because, sadly, he's a bit underused in the game. While playing the game, I thought he was even in it at points, because of how scared his appearances are. Still though, he's one heck of a villain, and I can't wait to see him again in 16 years. Showtime! Looky here, look what I got. It's King K. Rool, professional bad guy, finally getting his finest hour. That's the final title reference to the cartoon, I promise. K. Rool is interesting to me because he's a lot darker than you may expect. Riddle me this, Batman. Why does K. Rool steal bananas? You may think it's because he's hungry, but no. The game's confirmed that he hates the taste. Our developers say that he's doing it to starve the poor Kongs so he can take over their treehouse. Why does he want the treehouse? Because treehouses are awesome. Have you ever seen Kids Next Door? And I'll be frank, crocodiles are like the objective coolest animal ever. I had to include K. Rool. Also, he's my Smash Man. Sadly, he hasn't appeared in a Donkey Kong game in over a decade, but I hope his recent popularity in Smash will get him a reappearance. Also, I don't care if I said I'll start referencing it. The Donkey Kong Country cartoon is great. You cannot change my mind. Showtime! Zelda was a hard one to pick from. Ganon was the obvious pick, but Zelda had a lot of great villains. Majora is terrifying despite never really moving. Demise is basically Ganon but stronger. Xander's insane and steals the whole show. Vaati is just really heckin' cool. Girahim's tongue makes me very uncomfortable, but of all these, I just had to go with Ganondorf. I'm very basic, I tricked you all. Ganon is Nintendo's most well-respected villain for a reason. Unlike Bowser Deity, he never teams up with the hero. He's always on his own. Ganondorf was cursed to always appear as an incarnation of evil. Despite that, almost every incarnation of him is different. My favorite is Wind Waker, which I talked about in my anti-villains video, very subtle plug, but all I mentioned goes Ocarina of Time. I love how menacing this design is while still looking human. Also, I love Beast Ganon. I wish he appeared more often. He may be the generic pick for the series, but Ganon's got the power to overcome anything. Also, he literally overthrows every single new villain in the series. I kind of have to include him. Showtime! Ever wonder what it would be like if running dinosaur murdered people? Mother Brain may be the brains of the operation, but Ridley is clearly the biggest Metroid antagonist. He's Samus's eternal rival, which I feel like is a major overreaction. Like, yeah, he killed her parents. So what? It happened once. Won't happen ever again, Samus. Get over yourself. Ridley isn't just some big monster. He's extremely intelligent, even sadistic. While it's not very well shown in the games, in supplementary material, it's shown quite clearly that this giant flying purple people eater is pure evil. Besides that, Ridley is probably also best well known for being basically incapable of dying. I mean, he's died, but always finds a way back. Cloning, robotics, evil duplicates. This is the one pterodactyl that refuses to go extinct. Not even the franchise dying keep this guy down. Ridley's merciless, powerful, psychotic, and the hyper smash reveal that still leads to no one playing him, and he's more than worthy of the bronze medal of this list. Showtime! Kirby was another one that's hard to pick. Deity is the most iconic, but he's barely a villain. Marcus is my favorite, but he's reformed. Mettler falls into the same boat. Tectonia is for my favorite game of all time, but she's held back by her one appearance. Voiturmina is the strongest, newest, and most important lore-wise, but is still pretty underdeveloped. Nightmare is the main antagonist of the anime, but isn't that special in the games, so on. So of all the villains, I decided to give the second place to a cop-out. Yeah, I'm tying 3 villains. I have my reasons. Zero is the main antagonist of the series. He's the one who pretty much sets up everything. The one who pulls the strings in most games. Who is either directly or indirectly responsible for a lot of the villains in the series, and is the master of dark matter. In most games, dark matter is both an extension of Zero and a powerful separate entity that follows Zero, and is the more active antagonist of the two. Zero 2 is a resurrected ghost of Zero, and also the reason I see a therapist. Well, actually that's the same between them 3. No dark matter what form of Zero you're dealing with, even with their countless alternate forms and relatives, you can always guarantee they'll be working on their one true goal. Possessing King Dedede.
I have been every voice you have ever heard inside your head.
For that, this Zero has truly gone from himself to still a Zero. He's literally tried to corrupt the entire galaxy. Showtime! Middleface from Xenoblade. I can't talk about this guy without spoilers, so that's all I'll say. Plasma Wraith from Pikmin. This thing is so weird. It acts like a mother to Olimar, despite being solid piss. Someone from Fire Emblem Three Houses. I can't talk about them without spoilers. I can't say their name without spoiling it even. It's probably the one you're thinking of. The only pair in certain routes, I don't feel right including them. King Hippo. He's funny. Frick you. Dr. Coil. Lore is really the only thing ARMS has, and Coil being the mastermind behind everything definitely makes her stand out. Finally, Galeem. Listen, if you're able to kill 99% of Nintendo's cast with a single attack, you at least deserve a mention. On to number 1 or whatever.
Showtime!
By process of elimination, you can probably tell that a Mario villain is taking the top spot. And it's well deserved. I had 4 characters constantly spiraling in my brain take this spot. And if it wasn't for the 1 per series rule, the top 4 would have all been Mario villains. Bowser is of course the most iconic video game villain, period. And one of the greatest. He's threatening and also hilarious in RPGs. Falwell had one of the most well thought out plans of all time. He took everything into account here. King Boo is just ruthless. He's as close to a bloodthirsty monster as you can get in an E-rated game. All these guys are great, but for number 1, I just can't give it to anyone. These are all great villain traits, but to get a super villain, you need to combine them all, and somehow, that's what we got. What can I possibly say about Dimentio? He's the perfect package for a villain. You got an over-top personality like Bowser, he's got an elaborate, thoughtful level plan that includes raiding the Dark Pronosicus, letting Black do all the work, and then finally coming in the last second to overthrow him and destroy the entire multiverse. Why? Because he can. He's a con that does crazy stuff for fricks and giggles. Dimentio is Mario Villain Prime. Heck, he's Nintendo Villain Prime. And for that, he is in my book, the best Nintendo villain ever made. And there you go. There's the definitive list of the top 10 Nintendo villains. There's nothing else to say. Unless you include number 0, King Dedede, baby! Let's go! King Dedede! Best baby! That's great! He's the king of the show! Top tier! Never nerf! Super perfect! God in penguin form! Penguin in God form! Hammer time! Bye.
I'll freeze Cranky's hologram and then I'll stop him in a jar.